Genesis 33:17. Hannah and I went to camp, and actually that's where I got the idea for the lesson today. And I just went a different route with it too, but the idea and everything was from the camp director's wife. So let's read Genesis 33:17 through Genesis 34:2, and I'll read that. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built him an house and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Pandanaram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it Elohe Israel. 34:1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. So today I'm going to introduce you to a lady named Dinah. A lot of you may not have heard of Dinah before. Sometimes, we just hear a lot of the same main characters. We hear about Moses, we hear about Ruth, Book of Ruth, about Esther. But here we're going to talk about a young lady named Dinah. Dinah was Jacob, who is also later referred to as Israel, Jacob and Leah's daughter. Remember, there was Leah and Rachel. They were the two sisters. And Jacob was going to marry Rachel, and he worked 7 years for her and then went in, and Rachel and Leah's dad had tricked him and put Leah in there in the dark tent, on the wedding night. And he's like, what? And so then he said, well, I'll give you Rachel, the one he wanted in the first place. I'll give you Rachel if you work another 7 years for me. So that's what happened. So this is Dinah was Jacob and Leah's daughter, and she had 12 brothers. So we read in chapter 33 that Jacob settled his family in Shalem, which is a city of Shechem, which was in the land of Canaan. And upon settling, the end of chapter 33, we read that Jacob erects an altar and calls it Elohe Israel, meaning God, the God of Israel. So this is Jacob's declaration when he moved to this new place and he erected this altar. That was his way of declaring to everybody, especially his family, that he was declaring his faith and his recognition in the one true God. Okay? They were in a land of Canaanites, but they were children of God. And so this was his way of showing everyone around him, and even to himself. We have to have those markers in reminders in our own life, and that's what this was. So then in chapter 34, in the first couple verses, we meet Dinah, and it's likely, I did some looking on the internet. It doesn't say, so this is not set in stone, but it's likely that she was 13 to 15 years old. So she was under her father's umbrella of protection. Oh yeah, I used this at camp this week. I was thankful for it. Didn't rain too much, but anyway. So just as an umbrella will shield us from the rain, because, and I felt so bad at one time. It was raining, and I have the umbrella. Nobody else is walking with an umbrella. My hair by then was already toast. It was bad. Like the first day, it just shriveled up, and then I forgot my hair iron, and it was just bad. When Mrs. Frost's hair isn't straight iron, it is rough. So anyway, so I had this over, and then I was like, do I ask people to get under here with me? And I'm like, well, how do I ask this counselor but not this counselor? Then we'll be squeezed up. Julie just walked with her umbrella by herself, and I felt bad. But just as the umbrella shields us from the rain, Jacob was Dinah's protection from a world that didn't know or love their God. The Canaanites didn't love God. Jacob and his family, and very large family, loved God. And so, as her dad, it was his job to shield and protect Dinah from people that didn't know and love their God. So, however, though, in chapter 34, verse 1, reveals that Dinah destroyed her umbrella of protection, which was, her umbrella of protection was obedience to her father. Okay? And when she went out to see the daughters of the land, which that age group, I totally get the curiosity that would be there. Okay? But the thing is that she had Jacob for her covering. That's what dads are meant to do, is to be that covering for the daughter and help them make decisions and trump bad decisions. That's what a dad does, is trump a daughter's bad decision. Because see, a teenage girl does not have all the answers. Dinah didn't know all the answers of the wicked world that she lived in, and she didn't know what was out there. But when she went out to see the daughters of the land, she destroyed her umbrella of protection. And when she did that, that umbrella of protection isn't good anymore. If my umbrella this week, I had to ask Pastor, say, you buy me a new umbrella later, right? Because it's very important to see. If I had gone out this week at camp with this umbrella like this, goodness, I would have been soaked like everybody else. As it was, the bottom part got wet, but, because this is not how it's meant to be. This is not protective. It's just going to protect the back of me. But this is what Dinah was doing, is when she, at this point in her life, she thought she knew more than her father. And, it doesn't, to an adult, it doesn't even make sense. Because we as adults are like, okay, dad is like 2 to 3 times your age. You haven't experienced the world. You don't know the wickedness and what is out in the world and what can happen. And that's why God has given us this shield of protection. But Dinah, she thought she knew more than her dad, and that she could handle what she had been shielded from. And the moment that she acted on that, she destroyed her umbrella of protection. And now what was out there was able to get to her. If she would have just listened and obeyed her dad, then things wouldn't have got at her. I was protected from the rain because my umbrella was as it should be. But like this, I would have gotten soaked. And, the cost for Dinah, thinking that she knew more than her father, was very high. Verse 2 tells us that Shechem, who was a Canaanite, raped Dinah. And I don't have to go, into that anymore. The Israelites, the children of God, were to marry Israelites, just like we said before, not other nations who did not love God. And Dinah, when she ruined and destroyed her umbrella of protection, when she did that, she not only defiled herself, but she defiled Israel, And so the sons of Jacob, and I didn't write the verse down for that one. And the sons of Jacob. So verse 7, and the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought, speaking of Shechem, he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. So it's amazing how young girls will make decisions that will destroy their lives because of doing this. Miss Rebecca, which is the camp director's wife, told this story. And she told like 3 or 4 of them, of people she personally knew from college. But just one was that a girl that she grew up in high school with, she had a good home, and by everything evident, everything was exactly as it should be, and the girl was, you know, in her local church serving the Lord, everything. And then the parents woke up one morning and found a note, and the note said that she had met a man online in a chat room and that she was going with him. She ran off with him. And come to find out, he took her in the car, met up with her, took her in the car, took her to Florida to a house, and him and 2 other men, so a total of 3 men for 3 days, abused her sexually. And she was ruined after that in her mind, never recovered. And why? Because she did this. She thought she knew better than her dad and her mom and dad. And her mom and dad loved the Lord, were trying to do everything that they could to help her to have the best life that she could, and raised her for God. But she thought she knew better. She ruined her umbrella of protection, and to this day is paying a terrible price, because those 3 days will never leave her. They're etched in her mind. And if she turns to the Lord and allows him to help her heal, she will get past a lot of it. But sin has consequences. And that's the consequence that she has to live with, even after making it right and healing, is that it doesn't ever go away. It's going to be there. Now, the Lord will help her get through it. And I just pray that if she hasn't already, that she gives her life to the Lord and find some healing from that. But Miss Rebecca told us like 3 or 4 stories like that, all similar. It's just about destroying the umbrella of protection that God has placed over young girls. And Miss Rebecca didn't get married till later in life, and she explained how all the way up until she married her husband, Brother Todd, who runs the camp, that she was under her dad's protection. Even after graduating and being a young lady, that's an adult, 18, then 21, all these mile markers that the world gives, that she still submitted to her dad's authority until she met Brother Todd. And then she tells a story that she says, even now, she's like, there's this intersection where they live in their hometown, and her dad always told her to either be careful or avoid that area because there'd been a lot of accidents. And so there was something particular he told her to do when going through that area. And she said, even to this day, I can't go through that intersection without doing what he told me to do, because I just feel like I'm honoring him. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. That is viewing that umbrella of protection in a right and godly way. And because she did that, Miss Rebecca went to the marriage altar pure, and she doesn't have all that baggage. I'm not saying she doesn't have any baggage. We all have some baggage, I'm sure, but she has a whole lot less than the girl who cut her umbrella and destroyed it and went to Florida for 3 days. Okay, so it's, you know, later on in chapter 34, Jacob's sons tricked all the males of Shechem's group, tricked them and told them they needed to be, okay, if you want, because the man who raped Dinah, he said, oh, I just love her. You know, after he defiled her and took her, oh, I just love her and I got to be with her. And so went to Dinah's father, and of course the brothers were around, and said, oh, I've just got to have her, let me have her, and we'll mix our people all together, basically was the bottom line. Well, for one thing, they could see everything that God had blessed Israel with. All the cattle, all that stuff. They knew that Israel had something good, and they're like, well, if we get Dinah to marry Shechem, then we join our people. This was not supposed to happen in Israel. Israel was supposed to stay with the people that loved God, Israelites, not Canaanites, not other people of the land. And this is exactly why. But Jacob's couple of his sons, they lied to them and said, okay, well, if you want Dinah, then you're all going to have to be like us and be circumcised. And so they talked among themselves, and they were greedy enough, wanted what Israel had. And of course, Shechem just thinks he's dying because he wants Dinah. So they agreed to that. Their people group agreed to be circumcised in order to join the people. Like I said, greed was a huge factor in this. And then Shechem was the son of a very prominent man, a prince in the city. So he had a lot of sway. So they said, okay, to Jacob's couple sons, okay, we'll get circumcised. And so they did, and I believe it was the third day when they were at their weakest in the healing process of that. And they all did it at the same time. When they were at their weakest, a couple of brothers went in and they slew all of the men, all of them. There was like two of them, I think, two brothers, and they slew them all. And then they took the wives and the children and all their spoil, and they took it back to the nation of Israel and to the family. But this wasn't what Jacob said to do. Jacob didn't tell those boys to go do that. They did it on their own. Jacob said, let me see. I'm looking for the one where it says that. Give me just a minute and I'll find it. The brothers' revenge. So, verse 29, and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives took they captive, the couple of brothers, and spoiled even all that was in the house. Verse 30, and Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, the ones that went in and did this, ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land. So they did not have Jacob's blessing to go do this. Ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And then the brothers said, and they said in verse 31, should he deal with our sister as a harlot? And so they said we had to basically protect our sister's honor. The point of that is the bottom line, when Dinah destroyed her umbrella of protection, it affected more than just her. No, it greatly affected her. Greatly affected her. But it also affected her family and the nation of Israel. Okay? And then then it put the two boys at odds with the dad. The dad was already hurting over the daughter being violated. And so what a mess, all because Dinah in verse number 1, where it says, and Dinah the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. When Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, thought she knew better than her mom and dad, especially her dad. When Dinah decided to cut her umbrella of protection and just destroyed it. And then Shechem saw her out and about, probably had someone take her. I mean, think of all the sex trafficking, all that. Girls just do not know what's out there. Like Miss Rebecca said, whoever's texting, it's most of the time it's not even that person. Right. Okay? I know a sad story. Now this is a sad story, and it's someone I knew and was familiar with, and my kids had sat under his preaching. And he was on social media and pretending to be a girl, and got some of these kids, some of these young boys, to send revealing photos of themselves to him. And then he turned around and revealed who he was and blackmailed them and sent them a photo of their contact list and said, I'm going to send this photo to everyone in your contact list. If you do not do what I want you to do, which was to make videos for him and send photos. He's in jail now. He was caught and he's in jail. The umbrella of protection that God put over young girls and boys too is for a reason, but especially young girls. This story of Dinah, as I was sitting among all these junior and teenage girls, if I could just make them understand the importance of not destroying their umbrella and letting the world get in and the elements get in, and how if their umbrella was whole, like God intended, how it would protect them from things they have no idea about and really should never know about. That girl that was taken to Florida, she should have never known what she knew over those 3 days and had to walk away with and now live with. She should have never known that. But she also should have never caught her umbrella of protection. God's placed it there for a reason. You may be saying, I'm an adult woman, what does this have to do with me? It was such a good lesson, and just so good, so pointed that I just had to bring it back. And, we do have a young lady in our class, but it applies to us too in a different way. Every Christian is commanded to be a part of a local New Testament church. And over every church or flock, God refers to the people in the church as a flock, God has placed a pastor. And did you know that after your husband, if he is still with you, that your pastor is your umbrella of protection? Guess I could turn it like that. It's so chopped now. Your pastor does watch for your souls. Let's turn to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 13, verses 17. Verse number 17. Tiff, would you like to read that?
Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they that must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you.
If you could picture the umbrella being whole again, and understand that God has given the pastor as the spiritual umbrella of protection over a Christian's life. And he does watch for, just as the Bible says, pastor watches for our souls as much as we allow him to. But that's the key right there, is that a lot of people don't allow the pastor to watch for their souls. They, and they destroy the umbrella of protection that God's put there. Just like the young girl does, just like Dinah did, they just destroy it and say, I don't need it. Well, why would God give it if he didn't need it? And when we destroy it, spiritually, we do not have this umbrella of protection that God has purposely provided in a pastor. And you say, well, what does destroying the umbrella of protection with the pastor look like? Well, one thing it looks like is talking negatively about your pastor. A lot, you've heard this joke about going home on Sunday afternoon and having roast preacher. And instead of having a roast beef lunch, you're having roast preacher. It means going home and talking, running down your pastor with your family. And if you don't do that, wonderful. Maybe you've done it in the past. That's what that does. It destroys your umbrella of protection, because a child will never respect their pastor if their parents are talking bad about him.
Yep.
Or, and I'm not saying that church members can't have questions, or that the mom and dad, there might not be something that they're wondering, about, like, I don't really know about what I heard in the message. Go to him. Go to pastor and talk to him. Get the answer, get the clarification, but do not talk about that in front of your children or grandchildren, because they are going to not forget it.
Right.
And they will never allow their pastor to be their spiritual umbrella of protection, because it's been destroyed. Somebody else destroyed it for them. And another thing that it might look like is challenging your pastor in an ungodly way. And you say, what do you mean? Well, having questions isn't a bad thing. Pastor loves when people ask him questions. But a pastor's wife once told me this: right time, right place, right attitude. And really, we should treat anybody with respect that way. But coming after pastor is never a good thing. And it's never a right or godly thing. Questions, yes. Coming at him, no. That destroys the umbrella of protection too. And he always wants us to ask questions. If you have questions, bypass me. Go right to him. Now, sometimes he might have me sit in, just, for appropriateness, but he's going to answer your question. God gives the pastor a discernment that it just blows my mind when I hear my husband. Like I said, if you would have known us growing up and him in school and how quiet and, and to understand now how well he knows his Bible. And then the extra discernment God bestows upon a pastor. The wisdom that I see and that I hear from him sometimes blows me away, And he's very willing to share things. And it doesn't mean you always agree. Okay, but you should never destroy your umbrella of protection by coming at, if you know what I mean, coming at the pastor.
Also, and we, at Friday nights, we have the prayer meeting, and each one of us prays. Pastor always prays for everybody.
Yep, because he watches for our souls. Thank you, Miss Donna. He watches for our souls, and he's going to give an account for how he watched for our souls and how he led us. But the next one is another way that you can destroy the umbrella of protection with the pastor that God's given you is by not counseling with your pastor with major decisions in your life. I feel like this one has really become something that never gets done. When I was growing up, there was so much more of that. And then in the early years, when we were Christians and in church, if we had a decision to make, the Bible says in the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom. And one of your counselors, the spiritual umbrella that God has placed in your life, is your pastor, with that extra discernment that we as laymen and church members do not have. God gives it to pastors. And so it only makes sense when you have a big decision in your life to just run it past him. It doesn't mean you have to do what he says, but we would be very, very wise to think about it, pray about it. And you know, I think a lot of people don't do it because a lot of people, maybe they've never been taught this. Okay, like I said, when I was coming up, it just was something we did. And I remember, I can count on one hand, and it wouldn't be all 5 fingers, of the times that people have come to us, come to pastor, and said, this is what's going on in my life. What do you think about this? What do you think I should do? Okay, and pastor will pray about it, open the word, and show him, okay, according to God's word, because sometimes we're in it and we don't see it.
Right.
Okay, but by not going to pastor, you cut your umbrella and let things through that were never meant to come through. Because remember, God gives that extra discernment to a pastor. Okay, and then maybe there's another person or 2 people, spiritual mentors in your life that you have that you go to. And then, so if you get 4 people that you've taken, that you trust, 3 and then 1 other, then your pastor, and you've presented this to them, and these are all people that are walking with God, spiritual, and they all say, I don't think this is a good idea. Boy, you better stop, or I better stop right there and say, Right. Or if they say, I think this is a good idea. I think God is going to bless this. But for us not to get our pastor's input is not wise on our behalf. It's really not. The wise thing is to go to him and say, what do you think God would have me do in this instance? And he's going to show you biblically. He's not going to make your decision for you. We all make our own decisions. But that's that umbrella of protection that we have. But when we have destroyed it, then we don't have what God intended for us to have. And then things get at us that God never meant to. We have to understand God is a purposeful God, and he does things on purpose, and he places things in our life and people in our lives, and he has a way of doing things. It reminds me of, if I can compare, Donnie, my grandson Donnie. He's 3 years old, Sam's boy, and he's autistic. And he is a young man of order, okay? And this Pyle lady, she marvels at his sense of order, because I am just like all over the place. And my brain just, But this little guy, Sam, if you're not following her on Facebook, she has just started a Facebook page that is sharing about autism. And I've encouraged her to do this because it's a whole different perspective coming from mommy and what she sees. I'm almost done. And what she sees. So anyway, she's done 2 posts so far. And the last one was Donnie had all their apples, apples you would eat, in a row on the floor. And you'll see, I think there might have been another picture, maybe. But anyway, he's constantly lining up his little friends, his Mickey and friends, or whoever, he loves it lined up. And then he'll even be so cute and touch their noses, go in a line and touch their noses. But if I knock one down, he has to have it picked back up. He will pick it back up, and he'll do it over and over again until he becomes frustrated. because that's part of the autism, is that he has to have order, okay? And it's so cute because when Sam has a smaller couch and it has 3 seats to it, and when Corey, then Sam, then I sit down, he would get the biggest grin on his face. And I was like, that is so cute. He's giggling because we're all sitting together. She's like, he's giggling because we're all in a line. You know, but that's the way his brain works. But our God is a God of order, and he has a certain way of doing things, and it's a right way. And the things that he's provided are for us, okay? Dinah stepped outside of that. Dinah destroyed her umbrella of protection. I don't ever want young girls to do that. I want them to understand, and I wish I could make them understand, but we can't. We can only share these truths from the Bible. But I also want us as church members to understand that God also has provided us. You know, we're not under our father anymore, and some not even under our husbands. But either way, you know, if you have your husband, he's your first spiritual covering, okay? And then you have your pastor. And sometimes there was a lady at camp, and she said her husband was pastor's right-hand man, Sunday school teacher, led their family, you know, in the things of the Lord, and got involved with a Facebook group of atheists, and now he's atheist. Stopped going to church, stopped leading his family. She works at the Christian school. Her kids go to the Christian school. And her heart's broken. See what getting involved with the wrong people and stuff can get you. Satan works that way. And now, you know, and I would have never known it from this sweet lady. It was a good, God was showing me a lesson about you never know what people are going through. Because I thought it was just another counselor, come from a good home, you know. Kids, her daughter memorized 100 verses for camp, you know. But she's trying so hard to still lead her kids in the ways of the Lord. And she has opposition from a husband who now says he's an atheist. So what this whole lesson is about is to learn to love and appreciate the umbrellas. See, Marie has 2. She has her dad, and she has her pastor. And then us as church members, some have our husbands, but we also have our pastor, okay? And don't destroy your umbrella of protection in these ways. The talking negatively about your pastor is such a huge thing. It will just destroy that umbrella so quickly, and you'll destroy other people's umbrellas too. But also, you know, not counseling. Oh, and then the last one I had, I didn't even read, was not attending church so that you might be fed. God has set this up for us so that we come to church and get fed. There are 3 services plus, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sunday school. Sunday school. So 4 services plus Friday night prayer. These are all ways for us to be fed. And go to, I challenge you, go to prayer on Friday nights for 3 weeks and see what it does for your prayer life and your Christianity. But learn to love and appreciate the umbrellas of protection in our lives that God has provided, and don't destroy them. I can go buy a new umbrella, but once this is destroyed in your life, you can't. The young girl couldn't put that umbrella of protection back. And even as a pastor, you might repair your umbrella, but if you destroyed it for somebody else, which is likely, it may never get repaired. So let's just not destroy our umbrella of protection. Thank you to our online friends.